This lesson is lesson 4.4. We're going to be doing some more factoring. This time we have a leading coefficient. A leading coefficient is where there's a number in front of the x squared. So, to recall, last lesson what we did was factoring, and there was nothing in front of x squared. Right here, there's nothing there, which means we know that's really just a 1. So when we factored this, we said, what multiplies to give me 24 and adds to give me 5? So if I dealt with this problem, I could say x minus 8, or I mean x plus 8, and x minus 3, because 8 times 3, 8 times negative 3 equals negative 24, and 8 plus negative 3 adds up to positive 5. And that's how our factors would look. Now in this lesson today, we have a leading coefficient, which means we have a number here. So it doesn't work out quite as nicely as it did before. But don't worry. I do have a really good method that always works, and I learned it from some teacher friends of mine. So let's try this problem. If I have 3n squared plus 7n plus 4, what's this 3 going to do to our problem? Well, what we want to do is we want to go through kind of a method that changes this problem back to the way we'd like it to be. So I do not want this 3 to be there, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply it to the end. Okay? So my new problem is going to be n squared plus 7n plus 12, because 3 times 4 is 12. Now, this problem looks like everything did in lesson 4.3. So I can say to myself, what multiplies to give me 12 and adds to give me 7? What multiplies to give me 12 and adds to give me 7? It could be 2 and 6, or it could be 3 and 4. 2 and 6 don't give me 7, so it has to be 3 and 4. So I'm going to do n plus 3 and n plus 4. Because 3 times 4 is 12, and 3 plus 4 is 7. So that's great, but that's not what our problem was to begin with. So what do we do about the fact that we took this 3 and multiplied it back here to the 4? Well, now we're going to pay for that by dividing each of these terms by 3. We multiplied by 3 in the beginning, and now we divide by 3 after we have our factors. If it divides and makes a whole number like this, n plus 1, that's my factor. If it does not divide evenly, 4 divided by 3 does not divide evenly, we're going to squish it right over here and make this be 3n plus 4. So what we call this is, squeeze. We call this a squeeze. So we simplify or we squeeze. So 3 divided by 3 simplified to 1. 4 divided by 3 did not simplify, so we squeezed the 3 over here, and these are my two factors. Now, if you don't believe me, or if you're not sure I did this correctly, let's check this out. If I were to use FOIL on this problem, n times 3n would be 3n squared. N times 4 would be 4n. 1 times 3n would be 3n, and 1 times 4 would be 4. So, adding these two together, I would have 3n squared plus 7n plus 4, which is exactly what I started with up there. So the factors of 3n squared plus 7n plus 4 are n plus 1 and 3n plus 4. Okay? Let's try another one. For example 2, I have 6p squared plus 5p plus 1. So I'm going to use my same exact pattern. I'm going to take the number in the front, I'm going to multiply it to the end. So this changes my problem to become p squared plus 5p plus 6. So now I think, what multiplies to give me 6? Well, 1 and 6. Or 2 and 3. Which one of these, 1 and 6 or 2 and 3, is going to add up to give me 5? Well, 1 and 6 would be 7, so it can't be that. But 2 and 3 does add up to 5. So I'm going to have p plus 2, and I'm going to have p plus 3, because that multiplies to be 6 and adds to be 5. Now what do I have to do? Well, I have to pay for the 6 earlier, so I divide by 6 here, and I divide by 6 here. So 2 over 6 is actually going to simplify into 1 over 3, and 3 over 6 is actually going to simplify into 1 over 2. So we simplified what would simplify, and now we're going to squeeze. 1/3 is not a whole number, so I'm going to squeeze the 3 over, 3p plus 1. And 1/2 is not a whole number, so I'm going to squeeze the 2 over and have 2p plus 1. So my factors are 3p plus 1 and 2p plus 1 for 6p squared plus 5p plus 1. And remember, this is what you do when you have a leading coefficient. A leading coefficient. All right, we have two situations here. First of all, we have the leading coefficient, and second of all, it's equal to 0. Well, the equal to 0 part just tells us that we're going to have to solve this after we finish factoring it. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write this as 16x squared plus 0x minus 1 equals 0. That way I can see what all of my terms would be. I have 16x squared, I have no x's, and I have minus 1. So if I follow my pattern that I did before, I'm going to take the 16, and I'm going to multiply it to the end. So this is going to be x squared plus 0x minus 16, still equal to 0. And now we go through our process. What two numbers multiply to equal 16 and add to equal 0? What two numbers multiply to be negative 16 and add to be 0? Well, if I take 4 times 4, that would give me 16. If I make one of them positive and one of them negative, then 4 times negative 4 would be negative 16, and positive 4 plus negative 4 is going to be 0. So there's my factors. All right, now I have to divide by 16. Divide by 16, divide by 16. I'm going to simplify if it'll simplify, so I have x plus 1/4, and I have x minus 1/4, and it equals 0. So we can squeeze just like we did before, but this time it's equal to 0, so I could just as easily go ahead and find out what my solutions are going to be. So I have x plus 1/4 equals 0, and I have x minus 1/4 equals 0. So this one's this way and this one's this way. So if I subtract 1/4, I get x equals negative 1/4 on this side, and on this side I get x equals positive 1/4. So I didn't even have to squeeze it back in there because I was solving. Anytime that we're solving and trying to find out what does x equal, we don't have to squeeze. Okay, let's try another one. All right, this one is also equal to 0, and it has our leading coefficient. So we start out by multiplying the 15 to the end, which gives me x squared plus 7x minus 30. All right, what multiplies to give me 30? I'm going to write this over here. That adds to give me 7. So you could say 2 and 15. I could say 5 and 6. I could say 3 and 10. So 2 and 15 give me 7. Nope. 5 and 6 isn't going to give me 7. But 3 and 10, that could definitely work, because if I had x plus 10 and x minus 3, then 10 times negative 3 does give me negative 30, and 10 plus negative 3 does give me positive 7. So here are my factors. Now, I can't just stop here though, because I multiplied by 15 in the beginning, so now I have to divide by 15. Divide by 15. Then I'm going to simplify it. X plus 10 over 15 reduces to 2/3. 3 over 15 reduces to 1/5 equal to 0. So if I were going to finish factoring this, I would squeeze the 3 over with the x, but since I'm not factoring it, I'm actually solving it. I'm just going to do x plus 2/3 equals 0, and x minus 1/5 equals 0. So my solutions are going to be x equals negative 2/3 and x equals positive 1/5. Okay, now you can do your practice problems.